Well, I've been using my Manticore for quite some time, and and one thing became apparent, that I've not pressed any buttons since my original settings. So I think it's time to just investigate and see how we can get more depth. Now what I want to know is, will this depth audio theme give me more depth? So what other features can give us more depth? Well, perhaps we can talk about those in a little while, but first I want to investigate this depth sound profile. So in the depth mode, target tones are disabled because it's a single tone. The depth mode uses what's known as a VCO, voltage controlled oscillator. Now it hasn't got any real tone ID, it's got target intensity, so deep targets will sound quiet, shallow targets will sound loud. Still got the low tone for the iron, but when you go over something good you get a rasping sound. It almost revs up. Now if something's a little bit suspicious, that rasping sound will break up, it will stutter, so you can get a lot of information from this deep tone, the VCO. And you see there it's coming up at 5, but it's a lovely sweet sound. But it's shallow because it's quite intense, and this is the whole idea of using the deep mode. It's to give me a good perception of depth, so I can cherry pick the deep targets and just ignore the shallow ones. So I'm going to ignore that one because this field is full of surface trash such as foil, Coke cans, all sorts of nonsense. We just want those deep ones. Another really good example of a shallow target. This is a lot bigger, but it's screaming. And I'm going to leave that one because it's far too bright. 20 coming up on the target ID. Yeah, this is something I'll go for. Now if you want even more target intensity, shall we say, profile medium. Now if you go to rich, that separates that scale even more. Have a listen now. So I'd only recommend you use the rich tone if you've got headphones on. I wouldn't use it when you're using the speaker, because it becomes a little bit too quiet. And on the other end of the scale we've got simple with no modulation. That's perfect for me. Let's have a look, see what this is. There you go. Okay, it's a decay shotgun cartridge, but that was 9-10 inches deep. I know it's not in the right number range totally, but it's getting there. There you go, look, 2 dots, ferrous and non-ferrous. Pinpoint. There's something there. That's your iron. That's your other target. Okay, so we have signal in that side of the hole, signal in that side of the hole. Interesting. Okay, let me have a little look at this, see if I can make sense of it. Well, I know what that one is. That's a non-ferrous thingamajig. If you know what that is, post in the comments below. Let's have a look at target number 2. There it is. That is your ferrous. We've got the magnet there to prove it, look. Good bit of target separation there. Non-ferrous and ferrous, both in the same hole, literally. Soft one. Right down the bottom, look. Okie dokie. There it is, it's some sort of copper ring or something, I don't know. But have a listen to it on the surface. And you can hear the deep targets. which is an interesting point when talking about depth. You see a lot of air tests, but the real problem when you're doing an air test is you've got no ground. The ground is your barrier to entry. If there was no ground, we'd all get 14 inches on a target, but the ground is the problem. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking maybe that's a penannular brooch, you know. It's quite heavy. So just remember that the ground is what is stopping the depth. So mineralized ground, non-mineralized ground, rocky ground, it all makes a difference to your machine signal going through it. So one day you'll get good depth on one site, another site you'll get hardly any depth, and that's typical of a Roman site with lots of iron. You don't very often get good depth on a Roman site. So what other adjustments could I make to get more depth out of this Manticore? Well, as I say, my first port of call would be on that audio theme, use the depth mode. But then if you're looking for high conductive targets, why not go on to the high conductive target search profile? Now that uses a lower frequency, so that is going to punch deeper on those bigger targets. Of course, you can adjust the sensitivity and the sweep speed. Lowering the sweep speed will definitely give you more depth. So you've got a lot of options there to play around with to suit your particular field. So don't be frightened to just dip your toe into the water with some of these adjustments and see what one works for you. Just a quick one, if you need anything from Crawford's metal detectors, use the code Gary10 for a 10% discount. That's on all accessories. What about trying a bigger search coil? Would that get you more depth? I think it probably would. Let's find out. I've got the M15 coil on now. Let's give that a spin. Now some people say use the beach program because you can get the sensitivity higher and you're putting more power into the ground. Well, I think that's a little bit of smoke and mirrors, because the beach program naturally uses less power as a default, so therefore you can get the sensitivity higher, but you're only turning it up to match the general program, for example. So, you know, jury's out on that one. But if you've had great success with the beach program, why not post in the comments below. Now, ground balancing, will that give you more performance? Yes, it will, but only if you've got mineralized ground. Now, if you ground balance the machine and there isn't a strong enough ground signal for the machine to calibrate a ground balance, it won't give you any better performance. But if you've got mineralized soil, 100% yes, always ground balance. I think what we got to remember here is depth is relative to the size of the target. So finding coins at 13, 14 inches down is very, very respectable. Can you imagine the depth of something much bigger? The mind boggles, doesn't it? That's a boomer. Normal. Depth. Yeah, look at that. Absolutely huge piece of lead. Wow, okay. No wonder that was screaming. Screamer. Okay, let's go to normal. Depth. Still going down. Do you know what I've noticed on this field? Everything has a maximum of about 14 inches depth. Now, I think that's all soil dependent, isn't it? Some soils will allow you to penetrate deeper, others not so deep. So your real barrier to entry, as I said, is the soil. Do you know what I was expecting? Some sort of big coin. Flipping little coin, little copper coin at 12, 13 inches down, I'd say. Look, this is my pinpointer. Whew. There's a good one. Listen to all this iron. I think that's a positive target, and this big coil is managing to single it out in amongst all this iron. That's one of the traits of searching with a big coil on an iron contaminated site. There will be times where you get a good target and bad target within the signal. It's basically the size of the coil is seeing too many targets. Wait, I can see the edge of something there. Or can I? Yeah, there it is, look. That is a 1911 penny. Looks like it's in good nick as well. Another target at quite impressive depth, wasn't it? And it was surrounded by all that nasty iron and it still poked through. So that was quite impressive. Right then guys, I'm gonna have to get away now. Thanks for watching. If this video's brought you any entertainment or value, why not like, subscribe, ring that bell so you get a notification when I put a new video up. Lots more to come on the Manticore, and if you want to see the Manticore playlist, it's coming up right now.